What's up everybody, IT2 here with another book review video. This time I finished reading The Magician King by Grossman. Second book in Magician's trilogy, and this one I'm going to have to give 5 stars. It's one of my favorites. Wasn't expecting that because the first book I thought was kind of meh, kind of mediocre. And then started reading this one, and it started out kind of mediocre too. It started out like they're in Fillory. Quentin and his friends are like kings and queens. There's 2 of each in Fillory, the magical. It's like Narnia, basically. A magical land with weird creatures and magic and stuff. And he gets kind of bored because the last book he's kind of overpowered, so they're going on this hunt for this seeking hare, or questing hare, or something like that. Yeah, seeking hare, I think it was. There's all these questing beasts, right? And if you catch them, you can make them give you stuff or something. And something happens where he sees an adventure starting to happen, and he's like, his friends talk him out of it, and they're like, don't even try that. There's no reason to risk anything. So he takes the easy way out. He doesn't go on the adventure, and that kind of fucks him up because he was meant to do it. So then he has to do something later on to like make up for it. Basically, what happens is the magic in the world is starting to wind down, and they get sent on this quest to find 7 golden keys that wind up the world. Basically, it's kind of really abstract and esoteric and absurd, but you know, it makes sense kind of in the same way because that's the way the world works. And they have to recruit this guy as the best swordsman in the land while they're getting their ship ready, and the ship's like a magical ship. Like towards the end of the book, it starts transforming as the water gets too shallow. It can like sacrifice itself and get smaller, and that kind of stuff all happens. But then that's all well and good, but that's not really what makes this book so good. There's a lot of like flashback scenes with Julia, because Julia at one point she does something where she does a spell on her eyes so she can see something, and her eyes turn black, and she's just kind of like in a trance most of the time. Like she doesn't talk normally, and she's just kind of weird. What happened was she sold her soul, I think, a long time ago, and she's just realizing it or something like that. So this book has a lot of there's a lot of like sexual stuff in this book, and in the TV show, by the way. It turns off a lot of people, and it's more like people that are into like Twilight and shit like that. It's kind of like high school. It's like a romance, but it's not really real. That's nobody acts that way. It's like a childish version of romance or sex, whatever. This is more like an adult version of like what the real world is really like. It's gritty and it's realistic, I feel like. And the crazy part about this book that makes it so good is Julia. I'm starting a video probably tomorrow, like my top 20 fictional characters of all time that I've read. And Julia made the list because Julia is so wild. Because imagine like you're best friends with somebody, and then your whole life you're reading these books like Harry Potter or something, right? And then when you become an adult, she kind of like does that thing where when I became an adult, I put away childish things, and she doesn't believe in magic anymore, right? So when her and Quentin get tested for this magic school, which is like Hogwarts, she fails and he gets in. So how would you like if your best friend makes it into Hogwarts and you're stuck in the real world and they try to wipe your memory away? So, and then you start remembering that they wiped your memory. So you know magic exists, but you're just not allowed to like learn it like classically. So then she starts learning it with these safe houses and the hedge witches, and it's all kind of like underground and illegal, and you get these tattoos to show what level you are. She's like, it's so weird because they're learning spells that are just like, they don't really know what magic is exactly. They're like doing stuff, and it's like boom, a little pop will happen, and they call it like, oh, popper number 3, you've mastered it. You get a level star and you get a tattoo on it. It's like the other guys, they're learning like they're turning into swans and flying to the South Pole and like learning all this teleportation and like calling down meteors or whatever. And they're just like, I made a popping sound when I did this, and they're like making all these notes. Like if I do this, a flash of light happens, and if I do like this, maybe it's green. And they're keeping like a book of all their spells. They call a spell binder, which is a cool name, a spell binder. So then she starts getting addicted to magic, and she starts looking for different safe houses, and like she'll go to one that's like, this is all you got? You get like nothing here. This is bullshit. She'll just leave. It just pisses everybody off because she's so hooked on magic. And then she starts like doing like sexual favors to get good at magic. Like she'll give people blowjobs and hand jobs or have sex with them just to like learn some spells. And then at one point they're making a deal with a dragon. I think that has to do with getting the button to go to Fillory because she wants to get... No, that was... I can't remember if that was before. I kept getting confused because it would go into a flashback chapter right after a different chapter where Julia's in the present time. But it didn't really tell you that you're doing a flashback chapter. So you'd read like a whole paragraph and you're like, oh wait, we're in fucking past. God damn it. So you get confused. But anyway, she ends up with these guys that are like in this secret internet chat room. They're like the master wizards, right? And this is after she'd done a bunch of other stuff with all these different safe houses. Like one guy, I think he'd done something to her. She's kind of using people, and that just gets really interesting. And when she meets these people in this chat room, she has to go through this whole like 250 spell test she has to take, and she has to like prove herself and all this stuff. And then she finds out it's her friends that are the ones that are behind it, the ones she's been talking to in these chat rooms. They just want to like make sure she was legit. And so they get kind of like maxed out on learning magic, and I don't know if she's like better than the classical magicians at this point because she's learning it raw, like step by step fundamentals of like what does what. So anyway, these people, what is it? They kind of figured out that one of them says that he thinks magic is the tools left over after the creation of the world. Like God came, did the whole Adam and Eve thing, made the world, and then he just left magic laying around for people to find. Because they did find it, he must have wanted them to find it. So magic is the tools left by the gods. And then he starts saying, oh, it's not monotheism, and they start going back to like polytheistic gods that were worshipped like 2,000 years ago. Gods that nobody even heard of for like 2,000 years. And they start focusing in on different ones, and there's this shaman that's supposed to be 2,000 years old, like in the mountains of Nepal somewhere, and they hunt him down. He has this book. And they start collecting all these artifacts and relics, like staffs of like ancient wise men, like Moses and whatever. And they get all this stuff together, and they start focusing on this, like where the gods could be, like which is the real gods, and like they find this one place in Europe, and they focus on this one god called Our Lady Underground, right? Olu or something like that, OLU. And they summon it, and they're thinking they're finally ready to summon this god, and they summon it somehow with this blood sacrifice ritual or something like that, and they're praying. Instead of doing spells, they start using like prayers and stuff, because they're like beyond magic at this point. And the god appears, and it's not the god they're summoning. They summon like Reynard the Fox Trickster god. So he just fucking murders everybody brutally, except for Julia, who he rapes. And then when he pulls out of her, he pulls her soul out with his dick. This book is wild. So I think he left one of them alive too that was just sitting there watching it the whole time. It was fucked up. He's like pinching people's heads together or something. There's blood everywhere. And then he just... She says like something about like, we give you a sacrifice, you have to give us something in return. Kind of like using the rules of gods against him. He was like, I had to take your life, you didn't give them to me freely. So then she says, okay, I'll give you my life. So then he rapes her, and he let the other girl live in exchange. But then also, when he took her soul out, he also filled her up with some kind of god power. So like he was giving her power in return for taking her soul. So then it flashes back to the present day when they're on this boat or whatever, and they're doing the 7 Golden Keys quest. It's a big spoiler alert, by the way. This is all like spoilery stuff. She's like an empty shell of herself, but she's still got that god power in her or something. And then she kind of like becomes a dryad somehow. Because the actual... Yeah, she had to actually call on that god again, and it really came this time. The OLU, Our Lady Underground, or whatever. Because she had like a bird's nest with 3 eggs in one hand and a staff in the other hand, I think it was, or something like that. It was really weird. But I liked it. It was really awesome. Yeah, so it kind of ended weird, too. So they complete the quest, and they wind up the world with the keys. And they had to go to hell at one point, because there's this guy that was with them on their mission, and he died, and they went to hell to try to pull him out and try to ask him a question or something. Benedict. They named the island after him. And this one woman gave Quentin a passport to go, and he had to use his passport when he was in hell so he could get in there to talk to him. So then when he gets to the end of the quest, they like opened up this portal, and it goes to like the other side of the world, because in Fillory the world's flat, and they say on the other side it's like a new, kind of like a blank canvas world that could be even better than Fillory. And he's like, oh shit, I want to go there real bad. And you have to climb this ladder down until gravity changes, and you got to climb it up because you're not climbing down anymore, you're climbing up. And then Julia, who is now basically a demigod, she's like, yeah, I want to go, and she like dives through the portal. And Quentin's like, yeah, I want to go, and she's like, oh, wait a minute, do you have your passport? And he's like, oh, I do, but it's like in the underground. And they're like, oh, sorry, rules are rules. You can't go. And they're like, huh? And his friends are like, yeah, that's how it goes, I guess. And the friends are like, oh, they had to punish him too because he took Julia's punishment because she was supposed to be punished for something. I can't remember. Anyway, they say he can't be king of Fillory anymore either. And he's like, what? He can't be in Fillory? He can't go to the new Fillory? And he's just like, gets sent back to Earth. And his friends are like, he was like, well, at least I got my friends. And like, and no, we're going to stay here because you're going to be leaving, so there's a king vacancy. I'm going to be king now, and she's going to be the new queen because Julia's gone, so we're not going to be there either. He just gets sent back to Earth with nothing. No friends. No king in Fillory anymore. So Magician King is like, he did say he like felt more like a king now, but he's really not king or anything. So then at the end of this book, he gives you the first chapter of the next book. And I wasn't planning on reading it next because I was going to read the book that is at my mom's house, but I'm not going to see her till Mother's Day. So I'm going to read the book after this now because I'm so into it now. I want to see what the hell happens. But I was reading the first chapter of the next book, and it's just like he's competing with these other minor magicians or something, like with card tricks, and he's trying to like, he's auditioning for somebody to steal something for him. And the object is like Rupert Chatwin's briefcase. He's one of the guys from the Fillory books, so I don't know where this is going, but it's wild. Yeah. So when I make the my favorite characters in books video, Julia is one of my favorite because I love when characters are tortured and they like they have crazy stuff happen to them like that, like Fitz and the Fool from Robin Hobb, and the Name of the Wind guy, Foth, he was kind of tortured. The Job guy from the Bible, and also the Rubber Highland books. I don't know, that's wild. I just really like characters like that. It's kind of like that kintsugi thing in Japan when you take a vase and you break it and you put it back together with gold and it's better than it was before. That's really how you make a good character. You gotta break them and then you gotta put them back together even stronger than they were. It's like forging steel from iron.